Howdy, another of my off and on series of videos. This one a book plug for my little tome, Evolution Slam Dunk, Why the Reptile-Mammal Transition Proves Macroevolution, and How Anti-Evolutionists Ignore It. It bothered me that there was a huge block of data that supports macroevolution that wasn't really covered adequately in the regular science literature for the public, and particularly in relation to how creationists do it. It's not that the information is invisible. There are science papers and books up the yin-yang for paleontologists and the like, but if you go into an average room and start asking people about how much they know about the reptile-mammal transition, you are gonna not get a lot of hands up. And I thought that was wrong to do because it's way too spectacular a case. So I had to write a book on the subject. Everybody kind of knows about the reptile-mammal transition without realizing it. If you're one of these people who plays with little dinosaur models, you may very well have seen one of these little critters drop across your field at one point or another. Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon is a synapsid. It's not a diapsid. That's a taxonomical classification that refers to the lineage that leads to mammals, us. So every kid who's ever played with a Dimetrodon in a dinosaur kit has inadvertently bumped into the reptile-mammal transition, and they need to know about this more. When I started looking into the scholarship on this subject and why it wasn't being discussed adequately, you don't find it at all in Richard Dawkins's books, for example, and I'm going, what? Briefly mentioned in Jerry Coyne's new book, not new, but recent, the Why Evolution is True book, but he based it on material that was 20 years old, one old article, the Hobson article. So it's just way off the mark on here. One, the evidence is really spectacular, and I did another little video discussing things about the jaw transition and the ear issue, and of course all the materials in the book. But the other example is that every single anti-evolutionist screws up on this big time. It's not an opinion, it's an observation. And to see what the actual physical evidence is in the paleontology, in the developmental biology, in the genetics, how long this has been known and how well it has been covered, and to see how anti-evolutionists skate around it, where they don't even bother documenting their assertions. This is true of the intelligent design bunch, and it's just as true of the young earth creationists. In fact, ironically, to this day, Duane Gish, back in 1995, is the only anti-evolutionist who even tries to discuss the details of probanognaathids, which are this fossil group that was literally predicted in advance and has this double jaw hinge bit that is just the slam dunk thing. If it's designed, it means the designer really likes Robert Broom and Darwinian evolutionists. It deliberately designed critters to match their predictions. Nah, that doesn't sound very good. So to see all of that material means that if you're going to be defending the claim that there's macroevolution, you don't have to be cagey about it. You have a really strong case where there are so many blips on the scope compared to bird evolution and whale evolution and a lot of other things, even though we got a lot of evidence on there too. The reptile-mammal transition is spectacular. And it is our own history, and we should be knowing more about it. So I had to write a book about the subject. It kind of bothers me as to why there wasn't a book written on this subject before. Why had nobody taken a stab at it? Why hadn't everybody pulled all the information together? In all of the apologetics that's been occurring, all the stuff that's come out about the intelligent design movement, they've never paid the slightest attention to all of the junk that they've been putting out when they bump into the reptile-mammal transition. Michael Denton's brand new book from 2016, nobody has really done much in the way of criticism of it yet. I cover his stuff in detail in Slam Dunk. Not only on the reptile-mammal transition, but on the feather evolution, dinosaur evolution issue, and on the history of ants, which he screws up spectacularly on, and even on maple leaves, which he dithered on about at Evolution News and Views, and then forgot to discuss any time in his book. So that brings it up to speed that you can have a work that's really going to be a solid piece of research. And just how solid is it? I was delighted to find that paleontologist Christine Janis, who operates out of Britain, knew about my work and had bought my book. And I had no idea about this until she accepted my friend request on Facebook, and we got to talking back and forth, and I discovered about this. Not only had she read the book, but she was revising her brand new mammal book based on information I had uncovered in her own field that she hadn't known about, including material on these Permian era fossil coprolites that have indication that hair existed all the way back in the Permian. So a little pat on my back here. My work is extremely well researched, and you can go to Amazon. I'll put a link up to the Amazon version. You can read Christine Janis's review of the book. if I may quote her shortly. My work is an incredible tour de force and is going to be a solid piece of information that I hope more people can get and learn from and hopefully enjoy. It's got some entertaining stuff in there because it is really funny to watch, sad but funny, to see how anti-evolutionists with a 100% failure rate screw up on the reptile-mammal transition. So there's my book plug. I'll put links up to all this information, and people talk about it, look at it, get the book. It's available in ebook formats too if you got a Nook reader as well as a Kindle and that. And happy paleontology and the wonders of science are there. And oh, go yay, Probanignathus.